Angel Reese had always been a name that resonated on the court. She carried herself with an air of confidence that matched her fierce playing style. It wasn't just how she played. It was how she embodied everything that college basketball has come to love about young, talented athletes. Fans would say she could silence a room with her defensive stares, and she knew how to hold her ground, even when words weren't exchanged. But there are moments in every athlete's journey that push them out of their comfort zone, and for Reese, that moment came when Stephanie White made a choice that shook up the scene. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Stephanie White was no stranger to making tough decisions. A respected coach with an eye for talent and a mind sharp enough to cut through the noise, she had her reasons for every move on and off the court. So when she chose to lean into the hype around Caitlin Clark, another standout player whose explosive performances had put her on the map, it wasn't entirely surprising, but it left ripples across the basketball landscape. Clark's shot accuracy, her deep threes, and court vision had already garnered headlines, making her the centerpiece for many conversations about future stars. But this wasn't just another highlight. This was a shift in allegiance that spoke volumes without any words needing to be said. The news of Reese being passed over in favor of Clark didn't sit quietly in the corner of sports commentary. Reese, known for her candid and unapologetic demeanor, wasn't one to simmer quietly after a move like that. The moment she broke her silence, you could almost hear the collective breath-holding of fans who knew this wouldn't be just another polite statement. Reese, after all, had an energy that commanded attention, a style that screamed authenticity. She didn't need to hide behind prepackaged responses or a neutral facade. When she said something, it came from the heart, straight, without polish. It started when murmurs about the decision began filtering through social media and sports circles. The noise built up until it became impossible to ignore. Fans wondered how someone of Reese's caliber, someone who had pushed her team into electrifying wins with sheer willpower, could be overlooked. She was more than just stats. She was the embodiment of passion on the court. Meanwhile, Clark's undeniable skill was catching fire with audiences who craved buzzer beaters and audacious long-distance shots. White had made a call, a big one, and now everyone wanted to know how Reese would take it. Reese's response wasn't instant. It wasn't the kind of knee-jerk reaction you'd expect from an athlete caught up in the heat of disappointment. She took her time, as though weighing what it meant to speak out, to address the elephant in the room. When she did speak, it wasn't with bitterness, but with the same straightforward conviction that defined her game. She addressed the choice, the optics, and by extension, the narrative that was being spun. This wasn't just about basketball. It was about what it said when one star was lifted over another in a move so public that even casual fans couldn't miss the message. The context here added layers. Reese wasn't new to moments of feeling underestimated. Before she became a household name, she'd spent years building herself up, balancing the grueling demands of training with the expectations that came with her natural talent. Those who had followed her journey knew she was fierce, not because she was handed anything easily, but because she worked for it with every bead of sweat on that hardwood. Her drive was what made her magnetic, and why this decision stung a little deeper. It wasn't just that White chose Clark. It was the feeling that despite Reese's relentless climb, the narrative still leaned a different way. When Reese spoke about it, she brought humor to the surface, a wry touch that kept it from turning too sour. There was a light jab at how sometimes the game isn't just about what happens between the tip-off and the final buzzer. It was about the stories people were eager to tell, who they chose to spotlight, and how that reflected broader themes in sports culture. Reese's statement was peppered with moments that made listeners smirk, nodding at the truth hidden between the lines. She had the audience thinking about more than just the decision. She had them reflecting on how talent is perceived, celebrated, or brushed aside. Caitlin Clark was undeniably talented, with a knack for creating those gasp-inducing moments that made sports highlight reels a regular feature in her life. Her popularity was soaring, and in many ways, she deserved the attention she got. Reese didn't take that away from Clark. There was respect, even if it was laced with the acknowledgement that the game was deeper than a rivalry between two players. The real crux of Reese's statement was more significant. It was about how stories in sports are crafted, how choices are made, and what they say without saying it directly. Sports fans could see the underlying tension. There was something compelling about Reese's position, something relatable in the way she expressed her feelings. She wasn't throwing a tantrum or stirring drama for the sake of it. This was a moment of honesty that many athletes experience but rarely share openly. The choice between two stars, each carrying their own style, talent, and following, wasn't simple, and Reese's willingness to speak up added depth to the conversation. The humor Reese used to navigate this situation was sharp, showing her ability to keep perspective without losing sight of what mattered. She joked about how people might have expected her to react differently, leaning into the public's perception of her as fiery and fearless. But here she was, showing that while she could bring intensity on the court, she could approach disappointment with a level head. It was the kind of response that made fans appreciate her more, rooting for her not just as a player, but as someone unafraid to face the noise with eyes wide open. This moment also threw light on the challenges female athletes face, particularly in sports where narratives can overshadow sheer performance. Reese's position was more than just being snubbed for an opportunity. It was about highlighting how choices play out in the wider scope of their careers. Who gets the spotlight, and why? For many fans, Reese's candidness underscored the intricacies of how public attention is shaped. In Clark, they saw a rising star. In Reese, they saw resilience and grit that spoke of countless hours perfecting her game, even when the payoff wasn't immediate. Reese's voice gave her fans a reason to rally, adding another layer to her image as an athlete who doesn't just play for the applause but plays to be heard. She turned this moment of being overlooked into an opportunity to remind people of what she stood for and how she saw the game. It was as if she was saying, "I'm here, and I'm not playing for the easy nods." It was classic Angel Reese, saying what needed to be said without sugarcoating it. This wasn't just about one decision. It was about how an athlete responds when expectations and reality don't match up. Reese's words struck a chord because they didn't feel rehearsed or calculated. They were raw, unfiltered, and exactly what her fans would expect from someone who had built her brand on authenticity. She didn't try to play it cool or pretend it didn't matter. It mattered, and she let everyone know that without going overboard. It was a moment that showed that while Reese could play through anything, she wouldn't let her voice be sidelined. The attention surrounding White's decision and Reese's response to it created a shift in focus. It made people watch closely, not just for the next highlight reel, but for how these young athletes would navigate the stories that shaped their careers. Reese's honesty was refreshing in an environment where many athletes might choose to stay silent or gloss over disappointment with a diplomatic nod. The way she approached the situation drew a line between candor and conflict. She stayed on the right side of that line, showing maturity beyond her years. While the immediate implications of White's choice were clear, Clark was set to be in the spotlight. Reese's response set the stage for future dynamics. It wasn't about winning or losing an opportunity. It was about how you owned the narrative even when it wasn't playing out in your favor. Reese turned a moment of frustration into one of empowerment, using humor and plain honesty to address something bigger than herself. For those who followed Reese, this was just another reason to admire her journey. She wasn't about to let one decision define her, but she wasn't going to let it slip by without saying her piece. That balance, the tightrope between caring deeply and staying composed, is what set Reese apart. She made people feel connected to her experience, inviting them to see things through her eyes without asking for sympathy or applause. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.